Opening prayers. Dola Thongwa Jebe Drai Nobar Jebe Gek Tarba Dan Tamje Gembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tham Jege Se Jebe Ma Nangkada Yampe Senjen Tamje Dewa Than Den Tungyao Tangre Nudu Lana Mepaya Dobra Zobe Chanju Rinpoche Tombra Jan Thongwa Jebe Drai Nobar Jebe Gek Tarpa Dan Tamje Gembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tamje Gisa Jebe Mha Nangada Nambe Senjen Tamje Dewa Tan Den Tungyao Tangre Nerdu Lana Mepaya Dabara Zobe Chanju Rinpo Je Tobra Jan Dala Thongwa Jebe Dra Nobar Jebe Ge Tarpa Dan Tamje Gembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tamje Gisu Jebe Mha Nangkada Nambe Senchen Tamje Deva Dan Den Dunga Dandre Nidu Lana Mepaya Dobra Zobe Chanju Rinpo Je Dobra Du Sangma Gege Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewala Ko Mashi Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewala Ko Du Dhiring Ne Sunte Ne Ma Chan Ta Samgi Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewala Ko Sangye Jodang Sungki Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dane Kyabsu Je Dagi Jinsu Gebe Sonangye Rola Penche Sanje Drupra Shu Sangye Chodang Soki Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dane Kyabsu Je Dagi Jinsu Gebe Sonangye Rola Penche Sanje Drupra Shu Sangye Chodang Soki Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dane Kyabsu Je Dagi Jinsu Gebe Sonangye Rola Pencher Sanje Drubra Ju Sangye Chodang Sangye Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dane Kyabsu Je Dagi Jinsu Gebe Sonangye Rola Pencher Sanje Drubra Ju Ma Nangka Dang Nyambe Senjen Damje Dewen Gendan Dambra Gyuji, Dungyao Tang Dungyao Gi, Gyudan Drava Gyuji, Dungyao Mepe Deva Dame Drava Gyuji, Nering Chada Nidan Drave Tangyong La Nabra Gyuji, Nangkada Nambe Senjen Tamje Deva Dang Dewe Gendan Dambra Gyuji, Dungyao Dang Dungyao Gi, Gyudan Drava Gyurji, Dunga Mepe Deva Tangme Drava Gyurji, Niring Chadang Nidang Drava Tangyong La Nebra Gyurji, Ma Nangkadang Nyampe Senjen Tamche Deva Dewe Gyudan Dambra Gyurji, Dunga Dang Dunga Gi, Gyudan Drava Gyurji, Dunga Mepe Deva Tangme Drava Gyurji, Niring Chadang Nidang Drawe Tang Nyong La Nebra Gyunji Zashi Boju Jushi Medo Cha Rira Linshi Ninde Gempa De Sanje Shingla Mingde Bowa Ye Roku Namda Shindu Chopra Shu Om Guru Deva Dagini Rana Mandala Prate Chaso Take a few moments to let both body and mind settle. Let body and mind settle into their own places. Let body and mind find their own places of quiet and rest. But resting with presence, resting in presence, rather than resting without presence or without awareness. Let mind be recognized as wisdom. Let body be recognized as compassion. Let mind be recognized as emptiness. Let form be recognized as appearance. Now, please look at the Samadhi Empowerment text. Basically, these next few meetings will be focused on the Samadhi Empowerment text. Together, starting on page 2. So that all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness, be free from suffering, and achieve the state of Buddha, I shall meditate on the yoga of the 4 empowerments. Oneself appears clearly as the idam, fingers away from the point between one's eyebrows, on a lotus, sun, moon, and silk brocade seat, is one's root guru, the embodiment of Vajradhara. In the glorious form of Heruga, the Bhagavan, holding Vajra and bell together with Vajravarahi, who holds a Katri knife and a Kapala, father and mother adorned with bones, jewels, and colored silks, legs outstretched and bent, majestically poised with the 9 rasas, with Kalaratri and Bhairava on the ground, dwelling in magnificent luminosity and brilliance. Whatever slight virtue I may have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete great awakening. Guru, great Vajradhara, please bestow the empowerments upon me. Guru, great Vajradhara, please bestow the empowerments upon me. Guru, great Vajradhara, please bestow the empowerments upon me. From the point between the eyebrows of the Father and Mother Guru, white light emanates and dissolves between one's eyebrows. Obscurations of body are purified, and the supreme Vase Empowerment is obtained. I am the exalted body of the union of all Buddhas, the identity of appearance emptiness, and the Mandala of Deities. From the absorption at the place of union of the Father and Mother Guru, white and red light with the luster of desire dissolves into one's throat. Obscurations of speech are purified, and the supreme secret empowerment is obtained. I am the exalted speech of the union of all Buddhas, the identity of sound emptiness, and the nature of mantras. From the endless knot of the heart of the Father and Mother Guru, blue light emanates and dissolves into one's heart. Obscurations of mind are purified, and the supreme third empowerment is obtained. I am the nature of the exalted mind of all Buddhas, realizing freedom from all bonds of arising, abiding, and ceasing. The Father and Mother Guru melt into light and rays and dissolve into one's crown, purifying fixations of the three doors, and the fourth empowerment is obtained. Within the wisdom of sameness of exalted body, speech, and mind of all Buddhas, spontaneously realize the vast and equal essence, abiding in the Mahamudra of uncontrived wisdom. Through this virtue, may I and other migratory beings quickly achieve the glorious Guru. Having become that, may we establish migratory sentient beings, all without exception, in that very same state. Yeah, so on Monday, we started to look at this particular practice and to look at the first of the four empowerments. Yeah. Let's see if we have some discussions or questions, follow-up questions from Monday. And now is a good time. This is an important topic. You should ask. We should not rush. If we want to really experience this practice and do it the right way, then we should really pay attention. Yes.
In the Vase Empowerment, we have to purify all our afflicted emotions. But why in the sadhana just says the exalted body? Why don't says the mind and the speech?
That's belongs to the other empowerments, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first one has to do with body.
Okay.
Vase empowerment has to do with body.
But just the body? Not only
Just
the body?
Just the body.
Mm-hmm.
Secret empowerment, speech. Third, wisdom, knowledge, empowerment, mind. Fourth, the word empowerment, the subtle obscurations of body, speech, and mind. Okay. Obscurations, there are the gross and the subtle. All the gross obscurations of body is what needs to be purified, needs to be worked through, needs to be removed via the first empowerment. Obscurations of speech, in a way more subtle than body, but still we call them gross obscurations of speech, is purified primarily through second empowerment. Obscurations of mind, even more subtle than obscurations of speech and body, is purified primarily through the third empowerment. Then the most subtle obscurations, which is related to cognitive obscuration, that's purified at the fourth empowerment. In more detailed teachings on this, these four empowerments are related as well to the 10 bhumis of the bodhisattvas. And so first, Vase Empowerment takes you to the point of the first bhumi. Then I don't know, that's the truth, from where to where, the other bhumis. But starting from the 8th bhumi is when we actually enter the training of the 4th empowerment, all the way to the 11th, where we are with this. You will also come across 12 and 13 bhumis, but those are just kind of further elaborations of like Buddha. Vajrayana has a tendency of keep adding, and then there's another level, and then there's another level, just so you know. But for our intents and purposes, 11 bhumis is sufficient to deal with. 10 of them are all on the bodhisattva bhumis, or stages or levels. And then 11th is the stage or the level of Buddha. I use the word primarily body, primarily speech, primarily mind. Obviously, if we begin to train and focus more on the Vase Empowerment and what the Vase Empowerment should do, can do, all body, speech, and mind will be transformed, will be affected. But primarily the focus is on body. It's not saying that you can, continue to create non-virtues of speech while you're training in Vase Empowerment. Oh, I don't need to worry about speech. I don't need to worry about mind because now I'm working with the first empowerment. It doesn't mean that.
Does it mean primarily that we are working on realization of no self as opposed to phenomenon, not that we're not working on at all, but that's the first one that we tend to realize is the emptiness of self?
You could say that, but here is beyond the issue of emptiness of self and emptiness of phenomena. Here it's also very specific to how the body and every aspect of the body is to be realized as the mandala of both the deities and the palace and the Pure Land. Already in Sutrayana material, there's already extensive teachings on the emptiness of self, the emptiness of phenomena. Yeah. In the Vajrayana context, which is what this full empowerment system belongs to, on top of, since we know from Gongchik, we don't practice Vajrayana independent of Mahayana and Hinayana. So on top of Mahayana teachings and understanding about the necessity to purify, to remove the obscuration with regards to the substantiality of self and the substantiality of phenomena. On top of that, now in the Vajrayana, when it comes to Vajrayana, it is not enough to just be thinking about it in terms of removing these two mistaken notions, mistaken beliefs about the substantiality of self and phenomena. We have to more directly understand that every aspect of this physical body, their true identity, is expressed in terms of a mandala. A mandala where there are deities, so the container, the contained, as well as the container, meaning the physical appearance of the mandala. The mandala here now is the Pure Land. So, for example, the land, which is said to be golden, it's the golden land that is flat, right? Described often like this, smooth. That is none other than our skin. In every mandala in the center, there is the great mountain upon which the rest of the mandala manifest. That great mountain is none other than our torso, our spine. The four continents, the four directions, are our four limbs. The palace is the palace that manifests then on top of this great mountain, is our head. And more details to the degree of the Kalachakra mandala describing 722 deities. And not just that, but all the physical ornaments of that particular mandala, of that particular universe. There are chariots, there are gardens, there are railings, there are, garlands hanging from the railings. There are jewels, there are streamers, there are flags on four sides, or this and that. There are bumpas. All those features are related to aspects of this body. So the Vase Empowerment involves working with this kind of rich imagery and experience and color and sounds and shapes to see yourself, to experience yourself as this entire mandala. And that is Vajrayana's way, Vajrayana's method to do away with. That's the less poetic meaning of purify. To do away with, right? To get rid of grasping at self. Whereas in non-Vajrayana, the primary way to do away with grasping at self is to meditate and to think, or at least at the beginning to learn about how there is no self, then to reflect on how the self cannot be found. Then the mind working maybe with images. Oh, it's like space. It's like openness, no center, no periphery. So that's sutra style way of working through, getting rid of fixation on self. Here in Vajrayana, because Vajrayana recognizes, which is also recognized in Sutrayana, that this body that we have is the primary basis for imputing self. Our sense of self is strongly, predominantly tied to this body. And therefore, in Vajrayana, what this body is to be understood, is to be recognized as the mandala of deities, both the deities Pure Land and the deities that reside in this Pure Land.
So we really don't purify the body, so we need to purify our perception of the body.
And in that way, the body is purified. Mm-hmm. Don't think perception is one thing and body is something else. This is Vajrayana, where you cannot make that division. So we say in Vajrayana, you might think you're visualizing your perception is just perception. But no, perception is everything. And that is already established on the sutra level, with Chittamatra, for example. Those of you who know these categories. In Chittamatra, in the mind-only tradition, one of the levels that we develop, you already understand that perception is reality. Now, we are still habitually thinking, oh, perception is just perception, then body is body. Yeah. We are so committed to that, And as long as we still want to give us maybe a security of some sort and think, oh, we're just working on the perception, we're not working on the body. Although it might be helpful in the beginning to think like this, but this needs to also be done with. Otherwise, we're going to keep thinking, oh, perception is one thing, body, form, that's another thing. And when we do that, whether we know it or we don't know it, our tendency is to give more reality to and perception. That's just perception. And so in Gongchik, we already saw one of the Vajra statements, right? All reality, and reality, you have to understand, right, from the Buddhist point of view, reality is all momentary, right? There's no like a fixed reality, but every moment, what we call reality is presenting itself, it's being produced. So every moment of what we recognize as reality, in fact, should also be understood as the embodiment of momentary thoughts. And that's one of the Vajra statements that we already looked at. So in the history of how Buddha Dharma appeared in the world and how Buddha Dharma is distinguished from, say, the other ways of thinking at the time when the Buddha Dharma appeared. Some of you have studied some of these things. So for example, we know that in the area that the Buddha was active in, which is known as the Greater Magadha area. Magadha. This is on the eastern part of northern India. So in the Greater Magadha area, Magadha is an ancient kingdom, the most powerful kingdom in that. It's said that Buddha Shakyamuni's time, there were 16 different kingdoms, kind of small, you could say, maybe little states, but they're called kingdoms. 16 different kingdoms in that whole area, but centered on Magadha. And Magadha is like the most powerful. So you could say that whole Greater Magadha area. There were historical records suggest that there were three predominant kind of traditions, spiritual traditions in that area. The Buddhist, the Jain, Jaina, and Ajivika. Jain and Buddhists continue to this day. Ajivika don't exist anymore today. Ajivika and the Jain are closely related. There are some accounts that say that the founder of the Ajivika was a disciple of the founder of the Jain tradition. Of these three, historically, the founder of the Jain tradition was an older contemporary of Buddha Shakyamuni. But we don't think, historians don't think that they ever met. But about the same time, an older contemporary of Buddha Shakyamuni. So the founder of Ajivika and Buddha Shakyamuni may be closer in age to each other. Now, what all three of these traditions have in common is an acceptance of the general theories of karma, of causation, meaning that things happen not haphazardly, but due to there being a connection between actions and the results of actions. That's the most general statement one could make about karma that would be accepted by all three traditions. But then there are important differences beyond this general statement. So my series about karma treats this topic, which Javier and Omar very kindly turned them into YouTube videos that is on the Dugong Dharma Kirti channel. So all these three traditions in the Greater Magadha area, they all share this common feature, which is they accept that there is such a force called karma, whereby actions produce results. Yeah. Where it becomes different is what kind of actions. So Buddha Shakyamuni taught that only actions that originate from intentions produces moral results. In other words, produces results that we need to reckon with. So here, yeah, like this, okay? See what I'm doing here? According to Buddha Shakyamuni, this is not definition of karma. So now in modern terms, we say this is definition of what? The law of? Hello?
Gravity.
Gravity. Good. I thought maybe my science is bad, you know. This is an example of the law of gravity, not the law of karma. Karma belongs to the realm of how we label the things that we label good and bad. Now, if this was breakable, or the surface was breakable, and this is something really important and valuable, and you know, someone's great grandmother, you know, gave that to them, and then I, you know, knowing that if I drop this from here now to the floor, this is going to break, and I, with intention, you know, like I want to hurt this person, you know, so I do this. Yeah. So there is the law of gravity involved, but the law of karma is the effect of that action, whereby with my intention of hurting someone, I have created this action of destroying this object for the purpose of hurting that person. Buddha Shakyamuni says that is karma. The Jain and the Ajivika, they say all actions produce results, and as long as results are created, yeah, suffering and samsara will continue. So they say this is karma for them. Now, I think like modern Jains will not, you know, say there's, you know, this is not also gravity, but they say, yeah, gravity is gravity, but beyond gravity, this has moral consequences. This has meaning. So for the Jains and the Ajivikas, their spiritual path consists in begin by minimizing action, all actions, with or without intention, minimize all, until you get to the point where you completely do not act anymore. And so in the Jain tradition, the supreme way of leaving this world is basically to starve yourself, to stop eating and drinking. For them, actions, body in a way, it's a real problem. If you can get rid of body and your attachment to the body completely by giving up actions, that is the supreme way. And the difference between Jain and Ajivika, Ajivika is even more extreme. Ajivika says, karma that was created in the past, there is no way to purify that. You just have to wait until they all ripen completely. Meanwhile, once you have realized the truth of the Ajivika, then your spiritual responsibility is to ensure that from this point on till the end of this life, you do not create any future karma. Of course, practically, you have to start by minimizing. So first, quit your job, then quit your what you do at home, then quit, keep quitting until basically the highest form is, as I said, you starve yourself to death. If there are residual karma, which there probably are from past life, then you will be reborn. But when you are reborn, right? Because in this last life, for maybe 60 years, you have minimized creating more karma. So the idea is, every life, your karmic bank becomes lesser and lesser and lesser and lesser and lesser until it's finished. Ajivikas. Jain says, no. The karma from previous lifetimes can be purified. And so it's important to purify that. It's also important not to create more. And so also minimize your activity, minimize action, minimize. Then the possibility of it all ending in this life. Buddha's way, in contrast to both of this, says, karma is intention. And therefore, not all actions, but actions with intention. Then beyond that, Buddha says, no, the solution is not to stop creating karma, but the solution is to understand. So now Gongchik, right? That all phenomena is the manifestation of this principle of cause and effect. And so we don't have to look at cause and effect as a problem, but rather we have to understand how cause and effect works. And even like Ajivikas, like Jain, we are to ultimately, right, free ourselves from samsara, this cyclic existence. The way the Buddha taught how we free ourselves from samsara, from bondage, from cyclic existence, is not to get rid of karma in and of itself, but to get rid of the afflictive emotions. So the negative intentions that drive our creation of negative karma. So this is related to the body. Why I started talking about this is that we are not entirely, we are not like Ajivikas and Jain that relates to body as something like concretely the result of karma, good or bad, and therefore need to wipe out body completely. Then in the Vajrayana, radically in a way you could say different from Ajivika and Jain, as in this body is actually pure and divine. It's the mandala of Buddhas. And there, yes, as Omar, you asked that question, it is about purifying perception, which is the intention part. But we see this body, we see physicality as a consequence of perception. As the product of perception. Yes.
Intention by itself generates karma?
Yes. Some karma are purely generated through intention, mind. Then some other karma, the mind pushes speech and body
Right.
to create karma.
Action follows thought.
Yeah.
And it comes out of nothing.
What do you mean, nothing?
Intention. It arises.
Afflictive emotions?
I see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right now, almost all our intentions are grounded in self-grasping. And so in Lojong, that is said to be identified as the main problem, especially in Lojong. Of course, across all Buddhist traditions, that's fundamentally what the problem is. Hinayana identifies self-grasping as the problem, meaning already on the Hinayana, that's already clearly identified. Mahayana points out the necessity of not just giving out self-grasping, but the necessity and the inevitability of needing to cherish others. And Vajrayana provides the tools for powerfully, for swiftly doing that right now. So we practice all three together. And the main method in Vajrayana is through these four empowerments. Yeah, so again, that text that I was relying on Monday, going back to that text, which Kim shared with you guys. And the particular chapter is that chapter called the dividing line. Dividing line means, how do we know, we have crossed from this to that. So here is talking about if obtaining empowerment is said to be the key and the gateway, and not just the key, the gateway, but the primary method of Vajrayana practice, then how do we know, right? How do we know that we have received empowerment or not? So primarily, this is what is being addressed in this chapter. And this chapter has a lot of very important and helpful points, including answering these questions that some recently has been raised about, can you or can you not receive empowerment without being physically present in the same space as the Vajra master. So if you look at this chapter closely, some answers I think are given there. So it says here, Someone who wishes to enter the gate of the precious Buddha Dharma in general, and the Vajra vehicle of secret mantra in particular, who possesses the attitude of renunciation and sincere desire to attain enlightenment, should first connect with a qualified guru. This person should not be a charlatan or a demonic impostor. The student should have devotion free from hypocrisy and faith that resolves that the master to be a Buddha in person. With a noble heart free from desiring material gain or veneration, the master himself should accept the disciple and guide the disciple on the path in accordance with the mental capacity of the disciple. Then it says, then and only then, when the disciple has become a suitable receptacle, a suitable recipient, then the master can confer the Vase Empowerment within a mandala. Within a mandala, that means within the context of a particular deity. Sometimes I think this within a mandala is read very literally, as in you need to create a mandala and then you need to lead the students into the mandala. Yes, of course, there are rituals like that. But here really, to confer the Vase Empowerment within a mandala means to confer the first of the four empowerments within the context of a particular deity's mandala. Whether it's Vajrakilaya, whether it's Chakasamvara, whether it's Tara, whatever the particular mandala is. And through either the extensive or the concise ritual procedures. So very typical of Kagyu and Nyingma style is to say, the ritual themselves is in a way secondary. So whether you want to do extensive rituals or concise rituals, that is a secondary issue. The main issue is to actually affect a change in the mind. How do you cause these mental, these recognitions, these understandings, the four that I kind of gave you? How do you cause recognition to actually take place? Understanding to take place? Because if these two things don't happen during an empowerment, then you could say it's a failed empowerment. Yeah? If the student doesn't recognize what's going on and then understand more deeply what has been recognized, then the two other things that need to happen, experience and realization, cannot arise. And so in the Kagyu Nyingma style, it said that, yes, exact ritual procedure, if it can be done, is really good. But don't forget, what's the point? What's the reason for that? And so you will see when we go into the secret mantra section of Gogongchik, there are other traditions that say, you guys don't understand all the rules and regulations of mantra, secret mantra. So you guys, are not doing it the right way. So for example, it said, many of these empowerments have a limit of how many people can be involved, how many people can attend, 7, 25. But you guys ignore this rule. This invalidates your empowerment. Or, in fact, there's one section that criticizes Samadhi empowerment. And they say, no. Samadhi empowerment not possible. Empowerment always involves material objects. And you know, you can look from their side and to see that they are saying this, you know, based on a particular logic. But as I say, you know, I'm not speaking for them, so I'm not going to speak for them. If you're interested in their views, you can investigate them. Here, to recognize that for Kagyu Nyingma, as generally speaking, although there are always exceptions, the emphasis is, you know, all these rituals, all these procedures were designed by Buddha and Buddha's, you know, descendants to work, to affect, to result in specific things happening. And we need to remember and know what are these. Yeah? So then he continues, he says, here the main point is to confer the Vase Empowerment and give its pointing out instruction. So even at the Vase Empowerment, there are pointing out instructions. This pointing out instruction is called sometimes introduction. And often we think that pointing out instructions is only done with the word empowerment, the fourth, which is Mahamudra instruction. So often there it says, you know, pointing out, as in the master points out to the students, or more literally, introduces to the student the nature of student's mind. The nature of mind, we all have, because it's the nature, it's our nature, right? But what we don't have is recognition. So then, in the word empowerment, what happens is the master directly introduces that nature to the student. That's at the heart of what the word or the fourth empowerment is. It's called word empowerment because words are used to lead the student. So not objects, although sometimes it will also involve using an object like a mirror, a crystal, but primarily by uttering words. The precious word empowerment, sometimes it's called that. So often we only think that, you know, pointing out instructions is only at that point of the fourth empowerment. But in fact, here you see how even at the first empowerment, in fact, if it is done right, the pointing out is important and has to be given. And so give its pointing out instruction while focusing on a method that successfully reduces the student's habitual tendencies and deluded clinging. Deluded clinging and habitual tendencies towards what? Towards an outer and inner, gross and subtle, solid and ordinary world with beings. Then free from platitudes and mere lip service and exactly in accordance with the master's words. So the disciple then should understand. And so here is saying, you know, the disciple should not pretend. Even though you might think, oh, to be a good disciple, I should pretend that I understand what the master is saying. So it says platitudes and mere lip service. Oh, yes, 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 I'm deity. Oh, yes, 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 this is the mandala of deities. Oh, yes, yes, yes. That's what it means. It says free from all of that. The disciple should understand how the world and beings that inhabit the world, everything animate and inanimate, and comprised of the aggregates, elements, and sense factors. Those three are what constitute a person. The 5 aggregates, the 12 elements, the 18 sense factors. These are also mentioned in the Heart Sutra. has, since the very outset, from the beginning, never been anything but the mandala of the deity. Right then, through the master's kindness and instructions, the disciples' obscuration of momentary delusion is cleared away. So it's saying that if this happens as it, if this Vase Empowerment was successful, then in that moment, at least for that moment, well, all reality is momentary, yeah? So keep that in mind in the background. Then in that moment, that momentary delusion is cleared away. He is able to understand how the external world is in fact a celestial palace, and its inhabitants are indeed a gathering of deities. Here called a mandala of deities, just means a gathering of deities. So in a successful Vase Empowerment, you have to see that even for the briefest of moments. And then often, the next moment, it goes back to confusion. But Naropa says, that is like catching a glimpse of the first bhumi. And so now you see how why the Vase Empowerment is said to, if it is successful, receiving the empowerment, and then you train with this empowerment to deepen this, to see, to increasingly have your perception be transformed, and therefore form be purified into the mandala of deity. And then he goes on, in particular through the conferring of the 5 knowledge empowerments. So this is subdivisions of the Vase Empowerments. As I said, in more extensive rituals. So it'll be like, oh, now is the Vajra family empowerment. So using a Vajra. Now is the JUL family empowerment, using a JUL, usually painted pictures of these cards. Oh, now is the crown empowerment that represents the lotus. Oh, now it's the, pennant. These 2 streamers on the side of the crown. That is the Ratna Sambhava, and so on and so forth. Then the 5 Buddha family empowerments given as part of the Vase Empowerment. In fact, like Gala Chakra empowerment that the Dalai Lama does, under the Vase Empowerment, I think there are 13 separate empowerments. Then even before that, the preparatory day, a number of preliminary empowerments, preliminary to the Vase Empowerment, is given. Most of Kala Chakra empowerment, which goes on for 3-4 days, most of it is actually part of Vase Empowerment. Then the other 3 empowerments, time-wise, can all be done, I mean, according to the ritual. I don't mean like in the way that this text is describing. If according to the ritual, it can all be done in under an hour. Then the rest of the 3-4 days is all Vase Empowerment. So in part, that's why, we can see why Kyoba Rinpoche says, of the 4 empowerments, the Vase Empowerment is the most crucial for us. For higher beings, for bodhisattvas on the 6th bhumi, 7th bhumi, then yes, maybe those other empowerments are more meaningful. But for us, the Vase Empowerment is the most consequential, the most meaningful. I think when we use the word profound, sometimes it's overused. We don't really know what that means. For our purposes, I suggest that we think of it as what's most meaningful, what's most consequential. What will affect the greatest amount of change in our attitude towards samsara, in our understanding towards afflictive emotions? What is most consequential, according to Kyopa Rinpoche, is the Vase Empowerment. In particular, through the conferring of the 5 knowledge empowerments, the disciple understands and realizes exactly how it really is. He realizes that our inherent possession, which is the 5 aggregates, are primordially the 5 male Buddhas. The 5 elements are primordially the 5 female Buddhas. The 5 poisons are primordially the 5 wisdoms, and so forth. This signifies having obtained the Vase Empowerment and having embodied its objective. In fact, it is necessary to purify our karmic perception. So here, perception of everything outer and inner, the world and beings, as being ordinary and solid. So in this section, he goes on and says, so for example, he says, during the empowerment ritual, the various devices used is to help us purify, do away with, or at least in the context of the empowerment, temporarily halt, temporarily put a stop to our perception that is karmically driven to regard outer and inner phenomena as ordinary and solid and mundane, to stop that, to halt that. And so, an eye mask is worn. Yeah, a blindfold is tied, for example. Music is played, smoke from the incense. Then you drink something. Then you sit in a particular way. All of that is to help us see, help us understand that we have to start relating to physical appearances, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, as extraordinary, as deity, as not mundane, not solid, not fixed. The reason why a qualified Vajra master is important because, continuing from here, by the power of making the blessings descend through his own steadfast samadhi, the master interrupts for a short while the disciples' deluded perception of ordinary body, speech, and mind. And then the foremost disciple, the disciple with the greatest potential, can experience the unobscured dawning of self-existing co-emergent wakefulness. The next level of disciples experience pure perception with overwhelming and intense devotion. And even the disciples with the least capacities should at least feel slightly exhilarated. Now, in another text, in Pemasambhava's, one of Guru Rinpoche's texts called The Garland of Views. The section is is related to the Vase Empowerment, and more generally is talking about empowerment. Yeah. In the Garland of Views, what we find in there is Guru Rinpoche is summarizing the 9 levels, what's known in the Nyingma system as the 9 vehicles, 9 yanas. The 3 kind of worldly vehicles, and then the 3 outer vehicles, and the 3 inner vehicles. Yeah, so there, Guru Rinpoche is explaining, kind of in a very concise way, the view, the meditation, and the conduct of each of these levels. Yeah. At the 9th, which is in this system, the Dzogchen level, the Maha'ati level, here is how empowerment is to be understood. So I'm quoting now from the Garland of Views. It says, all dharmas being totally pure from the beginning, all phenomena, all experience, being totally pristine from the beginning. Pure means empty, okay? Vajrayana vocabulary, pure, pristine. All phenomena being totally pristine from the beginning are the immense and absolutely indivisible mandala of the divine wish-fulfilling palace. How to enter the supreme primordially existing mandala? So to enter the mandala is another way of saying to receive empowerment. So he says, so how? How do we receive empowerment? How do we enter this mandala? Here is how, he says. Studying the teachings of the vehicle of the method. So studying the methods of transformation, of purification, opens one's eyes. So this opening of the eye, right? So here basically what Guru Rinpoche is doing is, he is taking the steps that are involved in the ritual of empowerment, and specifically the vase empowerment. In a vase empowerment, some of you might have attended some of these Kalachakra, empowerments that are done over a few days. Yeah. So what happens is, for example, at a certain point, you are given a blindfold, and then you put on the blindfold. Then at a certain point, it says that the master leads you. You're blindfolded. The master leads you, like with the finger, like this, it says. Leads you to the front of the mandala, the front of the palace, of the divine palace. Now, of course, in these rituals, there are hundreds of people, so the master doesn't literally come and take you to the mandala. It says, oh, you visualize a master leading you to the mandala. Then it says, now, then maybe the master will say certain words and say, just as the Buddhas clear away your confusion, now remove your blindfold and behold the mandala. And so there's that part of the ritual. So you see the mandala whoa. And then there are rituals of like making prostrations, you know, for the first time you see the mandala, so you make prostrations. And sometimes more elaborate would be the master leading you to the mandala. Then the master says, okay, now we need to circumambulate the mandala 3 times before you remove your blindfold, see the mandala, right? Then the master also takes you to each of the entryway of the mandala. So you approach first the front door, which is the eastern door. Then you look inside. The master will say, look inside and see the eastern face of the deity. Then master takes you to the southern entrance and say, now look inside. Then to the western entrance. Now look inside. Then northern. Now look inside. Now come back. Okay, now let's enter the mandala. It's the next step. Then when you enter the mandala, that is when you're introduced to the deity, and the deity gives you empowerment. This is a typical extensive Vase empowerment ritual. You also, like, if you all remember, you also hold a flower that you offer. You have to throw inside the mandala, and then it says where it lands on the mandala, which quadrant. Then you belong to which Buddha family. So things like that. Yeah. So here, Guru Rinpoche will give, he says, the true meaning of all of this. So he says, studying the teachings of the vehicle of the method opens one's eyes. He says that is the meaning of removing the blindfold, which is you learn about the methods. You learn the Vajrayana teachings. Becoming familiar after having understood, one enters the mandala. Having realized the supreme sense after having entered the mandala, one obtains the great accomplishment. When you finally realize what you have understood. So seeing the mandala is like what I call recognizing, then understanding, then having experience, then realizing, obtaining the great siddhi. Then in an early commentary of this by Rongzum, one of the great Nyingma scholars and masters, he gives a commentary here. He says, in the lower vehicles, one gradually enters the mandala made of colored powder, what we call sand mandala, you know. He says, in the lower vehicles, one gradually enters the mandala made of colored powder or of other materials, meaning painted or three-dimensional mandalas. Those of you who have been to Borobudur, that is a full-scale three-dimension mandala. Absolutely. I think in the past it was used to give these types of empowerments. It's a full scale. If you have never been to Borobudur, if you have the means to go, you have to go. If you're a Vajrayana practitioner, then you can go there and receive empowerment yourself, I would say. Because you can really see all the 4 gates, you know, and enter the levels and go in and in and in. And finally, to the very top, to the center of the mandala, you know, you're introduced to the deity. And here in Borobudur, what's really unique is in the center at the very end, it's an abstract stupa. It's a geometric abstract. They say this is a local Indonesian style in ancient. This comes from like 7th, 8th century, even before Buddhism arrived in Tibet. They already built Borobudur. And you go in, it becomes this abstract geometric shape that represents the central deity. My personal belief is that they did it that way so that no matter what deity that your particular mandala ritual is, it works. So that it's not just for Chakasamvara, not just for Vajravarahi, not just for Hevajra, not just for Vajakilaya, but it is multi-purpose. The mandala in Borobudur. So here it says, in the lower vehicles, one gradually enters the mandala made of colored powder or other materials. After having opened the disciples' eyes, displayed the true nature of the mandala, and conferred the initiation, the master bestows the possibilities to start practicing Vajrayana to obtain the siddhis. So he says, in the lower understanding, this is what you have to do. The conventional empowerment ritual is what you have to do. He says, but here, however, we do not rely on all these things. The mandala one enters is the supreme mandala of the original condition of enlightenment of all phenomena. The way to enter consists in the 3 secrets. First of all, in fact, listening by means of the wisdom of learning. So on Monday, Jasper asked this question, the 3 wisdoms: wisdom of learning, wisdom of contemplating, and wisdom that arises from practicing. So here, Rongzom uses this threefold. He says, first of all, listening by means of the wisdom of studying to the teaching of a teacher who transmits without error the great vehicle means opening one's eyes. Subsequently, understanding the true sense, the true meaning by means of the wisdom of reflecting or contemplating or thinking means seeing the mandala, that is discerning the true significance of the deity. Having understood and becoming familiar with this state by means of the wisdom of meditating or practicing is the entering of the mandala and the receiving of the empowerment. Successfully entering and realizing this state completely is obtaining the great result. In fact, my 4 steps are here. Entering the mandala, receiving the initiation is the experience part. Then, having entered and finally realizing is the realization part. To open the eyes is to recognize. Then see is to understand. Oh, that's what deity means. That's why the 3 heads. That's why the 6 hands. That's why the 4 legs. I don't know if you can see. Here is Chakasamvara, but in the 12-arm form. The more simple one, described in our Samadhi Empowerment text, only 2 arms, Vajra and Bell. Then Varahi, also 2 arms. In the more extensive, more elaborate, Chakkasamvara has 4 faces. And then 12 arms. Varahi remains 2 arms. Yeah, so this is from Garland of Views and the commentary on the Garland of Views. So this is the way we receive empowerment. This is the reason we receive empowerment. Then after receiving the empowerment, we have to train.
I have a question
Sure.
about what is the difference in realizations that might come from a teaching or reading or something like that versus a realization during empowerment, if the realization results in any change?
I think you're using the word realization in a more ordinary sense. Here is a technical term of realization, tokpa. Yeah, so now re-ask your question, refine that so that...
You sort of cut out. Repeat that.
So I said, you're using, I think, realization in a more general sense and
Yes.
not the technical sense of tokpa. And so, so now re-ask the question. Remembering that there's nyam and there's tok. Nyam are experiences. Tok is realization.
I'm not sure I know how to ask the question in response to that.
So what you say, realization from reading or empowerment, you're talking about, just an insight.
Yes.
So when it comes to those insights, then, I don't know. What is the difference depends on you, It's hard to say, right? I cannot say, oh, the insight that you got while gardening is less or more than the insight that you got when you were sitting in front of His Holiness putting a vase on your head. That depends on you.
But insight is not, all insights are not equal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my point. So I am not in any position to tell you this insight is less than that insight or that insight is more than this insight. So in that sense, I cannot answer your question if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
But if you're asking, in this technical, very technical understanding of nyam and tok, this is an important distinction that I've always repeated. Maybe it's escaped most of you. There's nyam and there's tok. Nyampa experiences that arise in the context of meditation. And sometimes these are like experiencing heat, experiencing vision, and then sometimes it's some understanding that arises in the context of meditation. So all those are called nyam. Then a lot of times we mistake the nyam as tokpa, as realization. So like you do a session of Avalokiteshvara, love and compassion, you feel so much love and compassion, then you think, oh, that is it. Maybe you don't think you're Buddha already, but you still think, oh, that is it, Then later in the day, you just 180 degree, right? Somebody threaten you, right? Somebody threaten you. And suddenly, you realize, oh my God, I'm not Avalokiteshvara. I am the proverbial Karen. These days, Karen and Ken. You know, it's like, then you can say, then from retrospect, you're like, oh, that experience this morning, that's just a nyam. That is not tokpa. Tokpa is what we translate as realization. So experiences versus realizations it's a pair that goes together. But it says, without experiences, no realization. So experiences are like the stuff in which tokpa can dawn. So for your question, is that the answer would be, well, it's up to you. Depends on the situation, you know. Sometimes very meaningful insights come in ways that we least expect. Now, the point here in Vajrayana training is, so having said, well, it's up to you, here Vajrayana provides us with a comprehensive approach so that it's no longer willy-nilly, it's no longer willy-nilly, it's also no longer incidental. Everything becomes part of Guru Yoga. Then whether the insight comes from reading a book, the insight comes from walking the neighborhood, the insight comes from sitting in front of this or that holiness, giving an empowerment, virtually, physically, all of that you experience them as the blessings of the Guru. Then now you have ensured that, you know, whatever insight that you have has been released onto the path.
So if it's an insight that is more global than what you might have been if it transcends other things, it is more nearly realization or comes closer to, or is that what you're saying?
No, what I just said, I was talking about Guru Yoga.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. If
No, you have to make the decision that I'm going to understand all insights, all experience that arise as.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
That's the method being given in Vajrayana. When I answered your question initially, I'm just saying, without the guidance of Vajrayana, then you can say, well, oh, that was meaningful. Oh, that's not so meaningful. Oh, that's really powerful. Oh, that's not so powerful. And then you distinguish and then you divide, and then you have to pick and choose. But if you actually apply the all-encompassing mode of training that Vajrayana provides, then it doesn't matter anymore. Then it also doesn't matter. You don't need to go, oh, was that an experience or was that a realization? Doesn't matter. It's all the blessings of the Guru. Then it can unfold as it needs to unfold. And if you understand that it is the blessings of the Guru, then you do not fixate in any case. Because the problem with experience is fixating. And if you understand that it is the blessings of the Guru, even when you lose the experience, the realization of losing the experience itself becomes the blessings of the Guru. The Guru here is not a person anymore. Yeah, it's your innate wakefulness, right? So why do we practice Guru Yoga? We practice Guru Yoga because the Guru's mind, my mind, and the Buddha's mind are of the same essence. The purpose of Guru Yoga is to realize that. So whenever there is presence of mind, whenever there is mindfulness, whenever there is undistracted presence, that is when you are united with the Guru. So this is what I mean when I say it's the blessings of the Guru. Don't relate to Guru like Guru is some sort of God. So if you relate to somebody as your Guru, don't think that somebody, stop cooking, stop cooking his breakfast or her breakfast in the middle and go, ooh, let me send something to Judy. Ding! Not in that sense, the blessings of the Guru. In Vajrayana,
your ability to hear what the Guru said and realize,
yes,
not the Guru sending something. It's
yes, yeah. The mutual interdependence of causes and conditions. Other questions? Other people? Really, we are a very small group. You should ask.
Can you give the title of the book? I didn't write it down on Monday, please.
It's called Empowerment.
Thank you.
By Tsele Naso Rangro, Tsele. A very unusual name. If you just have Tsele, it will pull it up.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Warren Wilson Library has a copy.
Thank you.
I could be wrong. I think I ordered it when I was there.
Okay, I'll look for it. Thank you.
My confession, I enhanced the library for very personal reasons. Now that I no longer work there, the secrets can come out.
That's good. Now other people can benefit.
Yeah, I enhanced the library collection, right, for very personal, selfish reasons.
Yes, but down the road, somebody else can benefit.
We hope.
Thank you. It's not just you, other people too.
On page 37 of this book, Empowerment, it says, another aspect, it says, the followers of the new schools, this is referring to the Sarmas. Sarma is the Kadampa, the Sakyapa, and the Kagyupa are the Sarma schools. Nyingma schools, or the Nyingma traditions, are all the traditions that trace themselves back to Guru Rinpoche's time. Yeah. So he says, the followers of the new schools, and here, writing this in the 17th century, when he says new schools, he predominantly is talking about Sakyapa and Gelugpa. So footnote here. The followers of the new schools hold that the above mentioned link between master and disciple depends upon ritualistic procedure. So it is true that if you read the commentarial material of the Sakyapa masters, they are very detail oriented. They emphasize very strongly how you have to follow to the best of your possibility how the Indian masters talk about what's necessary for empowerment. For that link between master and disciple. So he says this here. He says, when they confer an empowerment, they maintain that all the ritualistic procedures, such as the liturgical arrangements for the empowerment and so forth, must follow the explanations of the authoritative scriptures, and therefore they place exclusive emphasis on these procedures, such as the self-initiation, etc., etc. He says, the adherents of the old school advocate that blessings depend on the mantra, and therefore place great emphasis on the recitation. So what he's saying here is, he says, the new school traditions tend to emphasize kind of meticulous attention to ritual procedure. He says the old tradition schools emphasize more the master giving that empowerment needs to really stabilize his or her mind with meditation on mantra. Then he says, in my own ignorant opinion, all of these must come together as a foundation. So he takes what he wants to take the kind of middle ground that includes both concerns. He says, yes, ritual procedure is important. Yes, having the essence, feeling the lifeblood, which is the stabilizing your mind through the mantra recitation, through focused on the essence of the deity. He says that's important too. They must come together as a foundation. In particular, it is my understanding that the vital point here is actually, so this is how, how they tend to write, they will say, yes, 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 both of those, they are important. But here is really what he wants you to know. In particular, it is my understanding that the vital point is to receive the blessings and realize the nature of the empowerment that is pointed out, which is based on the strength of the meeting between the master's blessings and the disciples' devotion. It appears to me that once you receive such a blessing, i.e., realization of the nature of the empowerment, does not, it appears to me that once you receive such a blessing, then realizing the nature of the empowerment does not depend solely upon a material empowerment being or not being conferred. Yeah? So this is, again, as we have seen in Kyoba Rinpoche's teachings, he emphasized. The qualified master's blessings, the suitable disciples' devotion and merit, when these come together, then the actual blessing can take place. So here Tselet Naso Rangro says, it appears to me that once you have this blessing, then whether, a material empowerment is present or not, is now beside the point. This to me answers those questions, Oh, do you need to be present or not present, It's like, yes, in the most ideal, everybody is present in the same space, right? In the most ideal, everyone is present in the same space. But Han Lai can tell you, so many times I've attended empowerment that, physically I'm definitely there. I even have proof. I took pictures. Or people took pictures of me sitting there, first row, second row, or last row. Physically, I was there. Yeah, that's about it. Mentally, I was somewhere else. Sometimes I can tell you, even in some empowerments, no choice, have to turn up, because if I don't turn up, it will cause some people to say things. Then to prevent this kind of gossip, you show up. But not really intending to take the empowerment. I know this is kind of crazy, unfortunate, but I'm confessing, showing you that it happens, So just because you are there means nothing. The connection with the master has to be present. Then if that is present, even virtually, the realization can arise, the understanding can arise. You can recognize what's going on. So next, he gives examples of how empowerments were given in the past. He says, for instance, due to the power of Tilopa displaying a cotton rag scorched by sparks and 12 other symbols, Naropa realized the nature of the 4 empowerments. In the biography of Naropa, how Naropa pursued Tilopa to seek instruction, how Tilopa took 12 years to train Naropa. It's called the 12 great and lesser trials of Naropa. Through those 12 years, often involving pretty sadistic by ordinary standards, pretty sadistic and dire methods, Naropa received empowerment from Tilopa. No ritual objects, no burning of incense, no beautiful tankas, all of that. The Dakini secret wisdom was also known as sun and moon attainment, as Sukha Siddhi when she transmitted the cutting practice, and as the Dakini Leki Wangmo in the Nyingma school. When she conferred empowerment upon Guru Pamasambhava, she transformed him into the letter Hung. Then swallowing him in the form of Hung, she sent Guru Rinpoche through her body and emitted, shot Guru Rinpoche out of her secret lotus, polite term for vagina, whereby Pamasambhava received the complete 4 empowerments. When Pamasambhava was about to leave Tibet for the southwestern continent, he bestowed the profound teaching of Pema Nyingtik upon King Lhasa and 4 other disciples on Mount Hepori at Samye. In a single moment, he transformed that very place into the realm of Sukhavati and brought them to maturity by emanating and absorbing rays of light. Moreover, when Lord Maitripa finally met the great master Shavaripa, after seeking him with disregard to his own body and life, his being was ripened and liberated simply by Shavaripa placing a hand upon his head. The Siddha Kyungpo Neljo realized the nature of empowerment when the Dakini Niguma poured a skull cup full of secret water for him and pointed a finger at his heart. The Siddha Orgyempa realized the nature of empowerment when a yogini in the form of a courtesan, polite word for prostitute, gave him a bowl of soup. There is also the story that the Terton Guru Chowang placed a piece of excrement, poop, caca, on top of the head of the Nepalese man Baro Vihadhara and poured urine into his mouth. Through this, Baro remained in the undefiled co-emergent wisdom for 7 days and was liberated. The learned and accomplished Kyoshe Tumpa expelled Machi Labdron from the Empowerment Assembly. This is the founder of Chut, Machi Labdron. That in outer appearance, she came to receive empowerment. This master chased her out and, insulted her and say, "Oh, you're a woman, get out, don't come." Expelled her from the Empowerment Assembly, beat her and threw her into the river, through which she realized the wisdom of the empowerment. And as a result, she could walk through walls freely. Dampa Gomun, who transmitted the pacifying practice, gave Chupa Dartson a cup of tea and a large bag of tsampa, saying, "This is a substitute for the empowerment ritual, whereby Chupa Dartson received the blessings and attained realization equal to that of his master," and so on and so forth. These are more drastic examples. One contemporary modern master, Namkhe Norbu Rinpoche, passed away a few years ago. He primarily lived in Italy and founded the Dzogchen community. In one of his first books, he talks about meeting his masters. And so there was a great master meditator. Even though Namkhe Norbu, because he was recognized as a Tulku at a young age and taken to a Sakya monastery, so he was trained in the Sakya monastery. At some point, I think it was his uncle, if I didn't mistake this, but it was one meditator that during his vacation back from his monastery, a Sakyapa monastery, he went to visit this retreatant monk. And this monk finally agreed, this retreatant, to give him instructions. And in fact, taught him this particular Dzogchen system. So then at the end, Namkhe Norbu Rinpoche said to his guru, "So can you perform the empowerment?" Then this teacher said, "What?" And he said, "We should do the empowerment." And then the teacher said, "Really? What is this? What I've been doing for you? Haven't I ripened? Because empowerment is to ripen, is to mature your potential." And Namkhe Norbu said, "Well, still I think, it will be auspicious to do the empowerment, the ritual." So then the teacher said, the uncle teacher said, "Okay, yeah, but you will have to help me." So Namkhe Norbu thought he was being humble, Surely he knows how to do this. So then this teacher said, "Okay, so tomorrow, or next week or whatever, you prepare all the things that are necessary, then I will give it to you as you want it." So he came. So Namkhe Norbu said, "Oh my God," he was like, it was painful to sit through the whole thing. He says, most lamas will take, like a couple of hours to do this empowerment. He said, but my teacher took the whole day. Because he will read the empowerment text. Yeah, he will read that part and it says, "Now you visualize this. So he reads that out loud. Then after that, it will say, "And while you're visualizing this, you should do the following thing." Oh no, then it says, "Then do the following thing." Then he does that, he does whatever physical things. And then at the end, there is a note that says, "You do those two together." Then he goes back to doing the chanting, doing the movements, and putting it all together. So what is like, this amount of time now has become 3 times as long. Every section, he was doing that. That's also because Tibetan texts are written like that. They tell you this, they tell you that. Then only at the very end, they tell you, actually, these two you should do together. They're not well edited and well arranged. It's all just all over the place. One of the reasons I've heard, they say, is so that nobody can just pick this up and do this on their own. So deliberately messy. So this master, he says, from dawn till evening, his teacher took the whole time. He will be chanting, and then pick up his bell and the maru. Then he goes, "Oh wait, actually all of this to be done at the same time. So let's do that again." No, chant, bell, the maru. It's like, oh wait, during that time we should burn incense. Okay, now let's start again. And chant and burn incense. So he finished all of that at the end of the day. Then his teacher said, "Are you happy now? We have done this now you can go. So those are superficial aspects. So here, Tselenaso Rangro says, countless such stories abound. Obviously, the vital point of empowerment is to receive the blessings so that original wakefulness dawns in our being. Therefore, there is no point in listing the details of whether or not the qualification of the place, master, and disciples are complete as taught in the Tantras, or whether there must be a fixed number of disciples and so forth. In these times, when the questions regarding the nature of empowerment, the way to implement it in practical experience, and the points of the Samaya commitments, etc., are left behind on the pages of the books, and masters as well as disciples do as they please, and what feels most enjoyable, these discussions between the two of us will cause nothing more than annoyance in the hearts of others. He's answering, one of his disciples wrote him these questions, so he's answering them. He says, the most crucial aspects of what empowerment means, people completely ignore that. Meanwhile, they are busy arguing about, should the bell be placed this way or that way? Should the Vajra be over here or over there? Should there be 25 people or 22 people? Should people sit this way or sit that way? Right? It says, these questions, it says, that's kind of pointless, In any case, regarding the purpose, once you receive the Vase Empowerment, your aggregates and elements are ripened into deities. And when you correctly understand the symbols and meaning of the development stage and put them into practice, the seed of Nirmanakaya is sown. That is the first empowerment, the Vase Empowerment. When we continue on Friday, I will say a little bit about the secret empowerment, and then the wisdom knowledge empowerment, and the word empowerment. And then again, we will look more closely at what are the 5 Buddhas, what are the 5 mothers, what they correspond to. So generally, in all of these mandalas, there are 3 sets of deities, sometimes called the 3 seats, like seat, S-E-A-T, seats, Densum, the 3 sets of deities. The 3 sets are Buddhas, male and female, first set. Second set, Bodhisattvas, male and female. Third set, Wrathful protectors, male and female. It is said that in all empowerments, these 3 sets of deities are either explicitly present or implicitly present. They're implicitly present, like in a simple, say, Tara empowerment, where only a single deity appears, the form of Tara. But the nature of Tara is necessarily all 3 sets. But if you were giving an empowerment or receiving an empowerment of Jakasamvara or Vajavarahi, then very clearly the 3 sets will be identified. For example, right, Vajavarahi, although she stands, right, like this, alone, but the staff, the trident that she holds, that is the male aspect. The female aspect is in the human form. The male aspect is in the form of this trident. Then she's surrounded by 4 dakinis in the 4 directions. So the peaceful female bodhisattvas appear. Then more complex mandalas. Naratmya with 15 goddesses. It's more extensive, more extensive, more extensive. The most extensive is Kalachakra with 722. That can be divided into these three groups. Buddhas, male and female. Bodhisattvas, peaceful bodhisattva, male and female. Wrathful protectors, male and female. Upon this basis, in the Nyingma system, they also talk about the mandala of peaceful and wrathful deities. 42 deities of the peaceful mandala said to reside in the heart chakra, and 58, sometimes 60, the numbers vary, of wrathful deities in the crown chakra. In the Nyingma system, the most well-known kind of mandala system is called the mandala of the peaceful and wrathful deities. The 100 peaceful and wrathful deities. Sometimes 102, sometimes 108 is called 100. Just like 100-syllable mantra, sometimes more syllables, sometimes less syllable, it's called 100-syllable mantra. So with regards to the Samadhi empowerment, you can do this without thinking too much about it. Just relax the mind, familiarize yourself with the four empowerments, with what is purified, what is realized. So with regards to the four empowerments, you can also look at it from the perspective of what is the basis that is being purified. So what is the raw material we're working with? The basis of purification. The means of purification. And the result of purification. So we can look at that from these three elements. What is being purified? How to purify? The result of purifying. Then you can also add one, which is what is the consequence of not purifying? So what kinds of confusions, what kinds of samsaric problems arise when we don't purify the body? And when we do purify, then what's the result of? And how to purify? And what is being removed? Changju Semju Rinpoche Ma Gye Pa Nam Gye Gyurchi Gye Pa Nyam Pa Me Pa Yang Gong Ne Gong Du Bill Wor Shu. So one brief kind of announcement is some of you have already done this. You know that if you are on Facebook, you know I've created a group, a private group for this Gongchik study. So part of the reason is that I have more material that I want to send you. And if you are in that group, you know, you can go back there and look for it in ways that WhatsApp, you know, after so many messages, everything is kind of buried and hidden. Hard to look. Not that Facebook is easy to look, but hopefully it will be more streamlined. And also the other thing is based on feedback from other people last few months, is that because some of you use WhatsApp also for work, for business. And so if you keep getting notification that there's another message, it's triggering anxieties. So we'll try to minimize traffic so that our list there, we can use it for making announcements that are important, such as when I said, I'm going to be late, or no, I can't make it, or something like that. So that way it would be more streamlined. Then the Facebook page, we won't make announcements there. So even if you don't have Facebook, don't want to get on Facebook, that's fine. It's just extra material. And also there, I encourage, you can start discussions among yourselves there. So because that one doesn't automatically come to you. Only if you're curious, you can go look. So let's keep the discussions, the sharing of material over there. Of course, sharing of material directly related to what we're studying, I encourage you to still send it to the WhatsApp so that everybody has it, such as what Kim just sent on Monday. That it's proper, it's good to send it to the WhatsApp group because we all need that. But more kind of discussion that comes out of this topic, that not all of us need. Some of us might want, some of us might not want. I don't want you to feel like the WhatsApp is forced upon you. So we'll move it to the group, the private group on Facebook. It's called the Gongchik Study Group. Invitations have been sent out. Sometimes I cannot find you. Then, if not being sent, then you let me know. And let me know what your Facebook name is, then I'll send, and you have to accept to join the group. Then finally, just so you know, this is not the final solution because this Facebook solution is still not a very good solution. So I am working with, in case some of you have expertise, I have requested Omar and Javier to look into the possibility of creating a simple but functional app that we can use. Not so much for discussion, but for sharing the Dharma teachings that we are working on. I think it would be very useful if we have such an app. Because then when you open that app, only one kind of stuff is going to come. Now when I open my email, all sorts of things can come in there. Now when I open WhatsApp, right, all sorts of things that might come in there that I may or may not want to look at. When I go to Facebook, all sorts of distractions are coming there. But if this Dharma app, is Dharma app, what you're getting, what you are opening. So something like that, I think, will be very useful. But I don't know. We don't know at this point. Of course, it's possible to do, but we might not have the financial means to do it. But in case you all know something about this, please share with Javier and Omar, and then they will let me know. Okay, ta-ta.
Ta.
Thank you.